councillors have questions for staff? Ali?
Just wondering why this didn't come to the annual plan process.
Well, is that really a question for staff?
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe not. Sorry. I'm just wondering because it's like half the endowment policy. Endowment fund, rather.
I think I sort of indicated that I thought they'd answered the question. They need to get things confirmed. They have to have a decision by the end of the month. So, are you talking about the next annual plan process? Yeah. They wouldn't be able to get.
No, sorry, the one that we all fed into for our communities, which we've already had the process we've just been through. Was that that?
I don't think it was ready.
Yeah,
but it's not really a question for staff.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I thought it would be because Mike's there, so I just thought that it would have been something that could have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ali.
Yanni.
So I'm very supportive of the concept. I'm concerned about where the funding's coming from. So what other options did you look at in terms of funding, given that it's a 5.32, it doesn't seem to meet the criteria of the capital development fund. So why are you willing to and what other
Well, I mean, we considered all available council funding, talking to various staff. The strengthening communities, the annual programs have already run, and a project of this size would unlikely probably have been funded through strengthening communities. The capital endowment fund is a fund that's available to council. I don't particularly think I probably should speak too much. Diane Brandish is probably more the person to speak around particulars of that fund. Other than that, the only real option available is the community loan scheme. But again, that's a fund that requires the applicants to pay it back.
And so just
But there's only one of the 4 criteria that it probably doesn't meet, which is projects of a citywide benefit.
Yes.
Projects implement a strong community strategic plan, priorities given to new facilities, and only projects greater than 50,000 can be considered. I mean, it meets every one except for maybe citywide.
I think that it's really clear from there that it must meet the following criteria. It's not like choose 1 or 3 out of the 4. So I was just kind of concerned about the precedent that this would set.
No. It does meet the test. It does meet the test in my view.
Well, okay. Can I just ask my question?
I've just realised that the citywide benefit is actually moving to this new model of supporting communities to do things for themselves instead of the council having to build the facility from scratch, employ people, do things for communities, which takes away all of the spirit of community. We just heard the community tell us that they were going to be bringing the community in to clean the place up. I mean, how much more engaging is that? I mean, would we have done that? We'd have hired Citycare to go and clean it up. I mean,
if I can say so.
Sorry, it is definitely of citywide benefit. It meets every test.
So are staff of the view that this meets the citywide benefit criteria in the capital endowment fund?
I think a fundamental answer to that question is that it provides a working model that can then be used, or at least considered, in other situations. If we are able to do that and have communities taking ownership, managing and having financially sustainable operations, it reduces the draw on council funds. Now, whether in fact the endowment fund is considered by everyone to be the appropriate source of money, that needs to perhaps be considered on another occasion should these things come forward in greater numbers. However, for the moment, if we can support this under the community endowment, capital endowment fund, given that we do think it meets the criteria, we think it'll provide a good working example to improve what we do in the future and to support communities taking ownership and reduce dependency on council. So that is where we think it provides the widest city benefit.
Right. So can I just ask, so for other groups, how do they access the capital endowment fund?
That's not a relevant question for this. Sorry, it's not a relevant question for this paper. I think you've already heard
When are we
Lester
getting a
say,
report back on that?
Lester said
We need
that we have to consider this issue in the future. And look, it is something that we're going to have to consider, but it's something that we have to leave to the next council. We're a matter of weeks from the new council being elected. Let the new council determine what the criteria will be. This is a great model to be starting in this way.
And if I can provide the council and councillor with some assurance, we're very keen to do this because we do hope there are other models similar to this that are going to come forward.
Yeah.
And therefore, if it puts pressure on the Capital Endowment Fund, that's a good thing. We need to fix it because we think it's a very good model for community going forward.
So just so I'm clear, so the model from here is get the group come to talk to council, put an application into staff and get a report to council.
The current
for endowment
model,
fund.
councillor.
The current,
Yeah.
Yes.
because I've got other groups that were
Yes.
really keen to
Yes.
apply for endowment funding, but
It's
the
not
process hasn't
relevant to
been clear.
this
Yes, is the
discussion,
answer.
Yanni.
It is, 'cause we're spending
Please,
half the endowment
please
fund money.
focus on the paper. It's
I am.
disrespectful to the community who've come here to hear their report debated.
The question for us is whether we spend half the endowment
The
fund
question for
on
us
this
may
project.
well be that, but the question in front of us today is spending on this project.
If there's no more questions, I'm going to have to move it.
Right?
And I'm sure you guys want to.
I'll let the two local councillors move and second it, so David and Glenn. But questions?
I mean, the question is, it really depends on the community that comes to us with these offers. Obviously, this community's done a hell of a lot of work, and so when we're looking at models for the future, a model for the future, the key for me is how will we ensure that those communities, when they come to us, have know the work they've got to do? Because, you know, Yanni's just mentioned about other communities and other groups, but that's kind of, in a sense, irrelevant because it's the work that they've done to combine that community. How do we do that, Lester? Sorry to...
No, look,
that's the key for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I welcome the question. This process has been a learning process. It's been a learning process, obviously, for the community, but it's been a learning process for us as well. The question was asked earlier in terms of why is this a supplementary paper. I take responsibility for that because there were issues that we were attempting to answer to address the questions that we'd heard from councillors and we anticipated might be there. We may not have answered them all. We hope we have now sufficiently to enable council to make the decision fully informed. As we go through, we will continue to learn and enhance the process. Once, I think this conversation and previous conversations with council leaves us with the sort of information and questions that we need to go back to any submitting group and say, look, you need to address this. It's not just the community brick coming forward. It's a robust case from their perspective, but it's also understanding the responsibility that council has to manage and use well the funds it has at its disposal. So we've got to meet both of those things, and this experience has been valuable in that light.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Ali.
I just wanted to ask about the endowment fund again. So there will be half the amount sitting there once and if this comes out, and that's until the next financial year. So we've got, is that right, Mike?
I believe so.
So we've got the majority of the year to go.
That's
Yes.
correct. Yeah, I
Right.
think it's about 303,000 available.
Okay, and at the risk of whipping up the mayor's wrath, I did want to ask, do you have any concerns that there will be other groups over the next remainder of the financial year that potentially could miss out because of the huge reduction in the endowment fund? Looking at what's gone previously.
Or the opposite. I mean, it may well be that more do apply, and I think that's what Lester just said. He said the great thing would be if it did put pressure on the fund because it would mean the new model
I
worked.
understand that, and it's a discussion that needs to be had, but until we've had that discussion,
Councillor,
we've
can I
got a new
respond to that
system.
question? There is nothing on the table at the moment, to my knowledge, so to say yes would be speculation. However, we are aware of groups, and some have been referred to in this discussion, who are likely to want to come forward, and it is highly likely, once the publicity is received, and we've heard about the likely publicity as a consequence of a decision which might be made today, that further groups will come forward. So these are going to be current issues which we're going to need to address. I don't, however, feel that that's a reason not to make a decision on this particular proposition, simply because we have nothing else on the table right now.
But does it mean that we may be confronted with the option of putting more money into this budget during the course of the financial year, and do we have the power to do that using a consultative procedure?
I'd have to refer to Mike on that.
And I would probably have to refer to Diane Brandish.
I mean, just to answer, I think there are two questions in there. One is, may we have to? That's a decision council might be confronted with. But we don't know. Can we? I don't know the answer to that question. I apologise.
We haven't got that signed off yet.
Will that also go into in your planning process?
Yeah, so, what staff are just reminding me is that we've also set aside $1 million to partner with central government over wellbeing and resilience initiatives at a community level. And this is exactly the sort of thing that we're talking about, where communities take ownership and they get support from the council. It's not the council controlling the process. Yeah. So there are other sources of funds that will be available when that fund is established.
If I can just say one thing in regard to that, I think we're all very aware about the amount of work that has gone into the preparation of this particular proposal and consequent submission. It would be a surprise to us, I think, that if we received several of this depth and quality to support a decision in the remaining months of the year. It's likely that we will receive some, but there's a lot of work that has to go before anyone could put the money, and council would be in any position to make a decision. So that will be a mitigating factor.
Yeah, Paul.
Look, it's just an issue around a wraparound service. If we give this money to this community group, do we actually get one of our project managers to assist them like we did with the Mount Pleasant, albeit too late? With Mount Pleasant, we didn't do that at the start, and they became a little bit unstuck with some issues they came across along the way. And if we'd done that early on, we would have probably mitigated quite a lot of cost to that community group. So I'm just wondering, do we... Sure,
I'll ask Gary to address that in detail. My expectation, however, as head of the group, will be that Gary's team will work closely in its role as capability and capacity building in the community to ensure that we're working alongside and identifying any gaps and skills required and supporting them so it doesn't stumble. That would be unfortunate for everybody.
I would have to say that this community has very, very, very good people in it. The information they're giving, the background they've done. If it was a condition, then I'm sure that they would agree to it. But to be honest with you, having spent a lot of time with them, I have total confidence that they can deliver this.
But we won't abandon them.
No, look, not at all. I don't disagree.
I'm going to be there.
It's really more of an assistance and, as you say, a bit of community capacity building and actually how you project manage. And there may well be the skills in there.
And we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot ourselves so that we can transfer that experience and that knowledge to other parts of the other communities in the city.
All right, well, I'll open it. Another question? You want to debate it? Well, I've got the mover. Dave, do you want to start it off?
Very briefly, push the right button. Look, I think we've heard from Lester that this is a bit of a learning process for council, and it's been an exceptionally good one. We are, as a council, I believe, making good inroads to move towards this concept of enabling our local communities to take ownership of our local activities and facilities. This particular group really has shown some outstanding contribution to their community in organising the levelling project, which they won pretty hands down. A huge amount of pro bono work has been put into the project, and the spirit that exists in this community is quite outstanding. Right from the time of the earthquakes, it's been a community that's refused to lie down and die. It's a community that's shaken itself by the bootlaces and got up and just kept going. And that's evident not only in this project but in a lot of other activities that have happened in the area. So I'd like to particularly compliment Jane, Leslie, Jason and the rest of the team at the Trust, and in my mind they are extremely capable, totally committed, and exude great confidence, leading that community to what I believe is a project that's going to have outstanding benefits, not only for South Brighton area, but for that wider eastern community. And I have great pleasure in being part of the team with Glenn here to propose and second this motion, and I trust that the rest of my colleagues will support this, which I think is going to be absolutely fantastic for our side of town.
Yeah, Glenn, Pauline, Andrew.
Thank you. This has a low-cost benefit ratio to restore what really is the heart of South New Brighton. So what happened was, after the quakes, through Sarah demolition, the shops which came into view over crossing the bridge, known as the bridge that welcomes us home, were summarily demolished, leaving nothing by way of a community gathering point. So we're not talking about just one building. We're talking about, and I know this term is used a lot now, it's a bit cliched, hub, but this literally is the hub, the heart of South New Brighton. So I think in terms of rate payer dollar spend, you could hardly get better than this. We see other CEF grants go to perhaps one project in one suburb and they all have their merits. This really is about beginning the road back for an entire suburb. This money will go to a suburb that arguably is one of the most affected by the quakes. We've heard the work that's been put into this. This is literally a hand up, not a handout. And you can see sequentially by granting this money today, it will enable the project to proceed to that next stage. The leaders involved are held in high regard in the community, as David has said, and there is considerable community support for them vis-a-vis the letters in the report here today. Over the discussion over meeting the criteria, particularly over a citywide benefit, and I take the Mayor's point, I think there's another view as well to take on board, in that when we get behind some parts of our city, particularly in this post-quake time, that benefits the whole city. So we can't have the city being lopsided. We need to ensure that we strengthen all parts as much as we can. I urge you to please support this. I think it does actually tick all the boxes. In relation to the argument, it's using up half the fund. That may be it, but at any given time it could have been a third of the fund or a tenth of the fund. It just happens to be half at this point. So I don't think that's a particularly strong argument over yay or nay over this. I would urge you to get behind it. $325, it's not much money. I need more coffee.
You can pay that yourself.
$25,000, it's not much. Yeah, myself, it's not much in, well, it's less than most of our houses, isn't it? But it's not much in terms of what you can leverage off that and achieve for the community.
Thank you. Pauline, Andrew, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I just really want to reiterate what others have said and really congratulate this group on a great job, a great presentation. That's two I've seen now, and the skills and knowledge that they're demonstrating and the willingness and the energy that they have for their community is actually, that's present all around Christchurch. And this is going to add to that desire for people to get up and actually do things for themselves, because we have so much talent, so much knowledge, so many skills in our community, and local people know their local areas and they know what they need and they know how to do it and what form it should be presented in, and they know how to make that succeed. In other words, they know that it will be used, it will be valued and it will be successful. And just following on from what Paul said too, that we don't just say, well, here's some money, off you go. No, we will walk alongside every project that's happening in the community, because we don't want to see our investment flop and we don't want to see communities fail. We want to see them succeed, so we will help. And there's other ways that we can help without offering more money. We can offer our skills, our knowledge, our wonderful staff we have there with their knowledge. So there's lots of ways we can assist, and we will not walk away. We want this to succeed as much as you do over there, and I just want to congratulate you so much on what you've done and how you've done it, and look forward to opening day. Thank you.
Andrew.
Thank you. This council has spent a lot of time talking about different ways that we can partner with communities, that we can genuinely partner with communities to deliver things that council may traditionally have done for itself, that communities are perfectly capable of doing for themselves. And here we're presented with today an opportunity to genuinely partner with a well-resourced, well-organised community group that knows its community way better than we as a council ever would, so that we can bring about this exciting project. I'd like to start off by commending the Trust on the completeness and robustness of the work that's been done. We've heard from the Trust on a number of occasions, and the presentations and the way that the detailed information has been presented has been nothing short of excellent, and it's that type of detail that makes a decision like the one we've been asked to make today, in my world, a very easy decision to make. I'm strongly supportive of this. What we're doing today is assuming this goes through, we're agreeing to a pivotal point in the process to bring this project about. We're providing certainty, we're providing the confirmation that's required to progress this, but we're also, and I'm pleased if we are, setting a precedent that other community groups can look at these type of projects where there's capacity to do so, and we're certainly setting a very good example of the way that communities can think of working with the council, and that council should be thinking of working with communities. So the level of activity that will run through this centre is clearly going to be great for the local community, and possibly wider than that local community as well. What we've got here is an opportunity for the council to do with the community, do with the community rather than doing for the community, or even worse, doing to the community. As has already, I think, been said, it's an opportunity for a hand up, not a handout. It's an investment in something that will be an excellent investment by the community, for the community, looking after its needs in the long term. So very pleased to be supporting this today, and once again absolutely commend the Trust on the work that's been done to get this project to this point, and urge all of the councillors around the table to strongly support this today.
Yanni?
Thank you. Just to start, I think it was really good that we got the explanation around why this needed to come today, and it would be quite good to have that at the start of the report when we're being asked to approve a supplementary, because it's absolutely relevant. So I'm glad that we got the reason, and if I'd known that before we voted on it, I would have supported this report coming as a late supplementary. I don't think there's any discussion about the merits of this project or not. To me, the issue is how is it funded. Interestingly enough, when the endowment fund was set up many years ago and the community were asked how did they want that money to be spent, there was a lot more support for project in local communities, and it was pretty overwhelming that people wanted projects in local communities being funded through this endowment fund. Unfortunately, the reality was a lot of that money went into economic development and into civic projects rather than into local projects. So I have always been, and will continue to encourage us as a city to change the endowment fund criteria to enable local communities to access that fund. I've always held that view, and I've tried to promote that as best I can. I think the sooner we get a contestable process around local communities being able to access the endowment fund, the better position we will be in. And I don't know how many times we need to ask for that, but that has been an outstanding request for I think quite some time now, and it would be good to get some conclusion to it. The other thing I think that's really important is over a year and a half ago, I put forward through the long-term plan a request that we get a report back on how the city can have and develop a community charter with community organisations, and we still haven't seen that put in place. And I think when we talk about new ways of doing things that like this project, actually having some sort of framework in terms of a charter, I think would be really powerful. So hopefully this can be a bit of a pilot project around that, and maybe that can inform the development of that, because there are many other groups who wish to also operate in a unique and different way, who don't wish council to actually own their facilities, but require some capital assistance. Just turning to the project itself, I think this is a fantastic project. It certainly deserves to get funded. I think it will do far more for our city than many of the other things that we're funding through economic development, through the endowment fund like Ads in Australia or, you know, tourism promotions. Actually, if we have strong local communities that are fun places, that are affordable places, that are dynamic and diverse places, I think that does a lot more to promote our city to the rest of the country, the rest of the world, than some of the advertising campaigns we've put in place. So I strongly support this project. And I'll just conclude by saying the other thing that would be really good is to understand where this $1 million fund is, because we set up a fund, and I totally agree that this would be something that actually that fund could consider if it was set up. So it would be really good to have some understanding when that money may be available for other groups that wish to apply, given that it's not available today. So thank you.
Paul and then Vicky.
I don't want to repeat what everybody else said. So look,
Wouldn't want to repeat
the council has often been doing things for the community, and over the years we've picked up more and more of that responsibility. And I remember in my previous role once talking to the streets manager for the central city, he said to me, "Yeah, Paul, the council would make you breakfast in bed as long as you're willing to pay for it." So we want to change that model, and this council has actually gone a long way towards actually changing that model. Post the earthquake, I was involved in the Restart project. The biggest issue we had getting that project off the ground was funding. We had to end up getting an interest-free loan, which still put a lot of pressure on us to perform and actually have the ability to actually remain solvent. So I'm a really, really strong supporter of social outcomes through social enterprise. It's the way to go about it. The communities out there want to do things for themselves. We don't want to get in the way. We want to help them actually achieve the things they want to achieve. And I think that'll actually help bring those communities together, strengthen the local communities, which is actually really, really important. Those local communities will actually strengthen themselves and in turn actually strengthen the city. So actually, and I welcome more communities stepping up and wanting to apply. I think it's a great thing. And as you said earlier, if we get more doing that and wanting to apply and do things for themselves, we should be there to support it and find ways how we can actually support it more.
Just very briefly, because it seems to me that this project, I was actually ready to fund it when they came along to the CHED committee. And all we had to do basically was find a source that was appropriate. They've actually gone out, they've solved all the problems, they've done a huge amount of work. The community endowment, the capital endowment fund has now been changed so that much of it can go to innovation and community, which is exactly what this is. It seems to me that there is a starting gate. We provide the first layer of funding. At the moment the gate's shut and all we need to do is open the gate and they're away. And that sort of model is exactly what we're trying to do. So our job is to try to make things as easy as possible for the community. These guys are doing it for themselves, and that's fantastic. Our job is just to help. It's really easy, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't going to participate except for that last comment, not from Vicky, but we did have a conversation with central government about the need to have community-led action. Because if the community leads action, then in itself it improves well-being and builds resilience, and I know that some people don't like that phrase resilience, but it's actually part of what we want people to be able to build with themselves. The council can't come in and make a community resilient. The council can't come in and make a community, have a sense of well-being. The community can do it itself, but it needs support. All communities need support. We've been having a really interesting conversation, and this is about the Community Wellbeing and Resilience Fund, which we're talking to central government about. So it's not yet resolved, and so directing accusing questions to staff around this fund, it's going to come back to council. But what central government and us are talking about is having the ability to resource communities to do things for themselves, to lead their own building of resilience and wellbeing. this will have an effect on mental health and well-being as well. I always remember reading that wonderful report that Sir Peter Gluckman wrote in, I think, May 2011, so it was straight after the earthquakes, and he basically said that communities have a degree of competence which is shaken by a disaster. So the earthquakes shake people's confidence, restoring that sense of self-confidence, the competence of their own community, coming forward to do things. That's what builds or hastens recovery. That's what makes communities grow stronger and more resilient. So I just think that this isn't going to be funded from the Capital Endowment Fund in the future. This is exactly the sort of project that I think that if we can get this fund set up with central government, that's where they will be funded. But it isn't just communities that are struggling in the post-disaster environment. And I mean, look at the people that are involved in this. I mean, they're awesome professionals and community activists and people who've got a background of experience in so many different areas that, you know, that they will succeed. But you take a brand new community, take Wigram Skies. Have they got the energy to form a community? I mean, a lot of the people from the east moved there. There's a lot of integration still to be done to actually build community spirit. And it's that community spirit and energy that sometimes needs a little bit of resourcing, and actually a little bit of joy in people's lives would be a jolly good thing as well. So, and fairies, and I'm pretty sure the fairies will go to the opening as well. So I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Excellent. Well done. Eh?